So, is it just me or things are getting a little bit out of control in our country these days? Today is the third episode of Made in the Image of God, and we're gonna go a little bit deeper on this conversation. Our country is no stranger to social issues. We've enslaved people for centuries. That's one of the reasons why we got in the Civil War in the first place. Some people thought it was a good idea to own slaves. And when the slaves were finally free, they had no access to education, they had no access to health, to anything. Their situation was still terrible. They were circumstantial slaves still. They couldn't even find a good job. To deny that racism exists in America is the same as to say we're still a British colony. And to deny that racism exists today is to choose to be ignorant. When I was brand new to America, I was leading a group of students in a missionary field. We're doing some missionary work. And one of the students was originally from Kenya. I mean, his parents were from Kenya, but he was born in America. So he was like very dark skin. I'm not gonna mention the name of the state or the name of the student, but for many, many occasions, we were walking into houses and the yards of people. This student, people would just tell him, "Get out of my yard," and they would use cussing words towards him. I was horrified. I have never witnessed anything like this, but it was real. This student was only about 15 or 16 years old at that time, and he experienced some hatred and racism towards him just because of the color of his skin. So to say that racism does not exist in America is to choose to be blind to the reality that yes, there are still racist people, but also to say that America is a completely racist nation is also wrong. So, racism, yes, it is real in America. Yes, there are people who hate others just based on their race. But to say that the whole country is a country of bigots and is completely racist is also wrong. I love America. I absolutely love this country. By the way, by the time you watch this video, I would have been an American citizen. Yes, it only took me 12 years, 27 days, and maybe like 4 or 5 hours to become a US citizen. It's a long time. Every time I have a chance to talk to the young people in America who are born here and raised here or have all these privileges of just being born here, I always tell them, guys, you have no idea how much ahead you are of others. This country is a blessing. Yes, it's not perfect by all means. Yes, we do have bigots, we do have racism, but it is a fantastic place in the world to live. Don't believe me? Just travel around just a little bit. And by the way, if this place was horrible, if this was the most racist nation in the world, why would still people want to come here? This is still the #1 place in the world where people want to migrate to. I love America and I still pray, God bless America. As I said, we do have bigots, we do have racists, but the majority of people I ever met in this country are loving, caring people who care and love one another, and I'm amazed by these people. These people like you inspire me and will make me a proud American citizen because of you. People who care for others, regardless of their church, regardless of their faith, regardless of the color of their skin, or even where they came from. What I'm trying to say is this. To say that racism does not exist, as I said, is to be in denial, to live in denial. And to say that this country is run and is full of bigots and racists, it's also to be in denial. This is not a completely racist nation. How to explain Oprah? How to explain Tyler Perry? How to explain Ben Carson or even Barack Obama? If this country was completely full of racists and run by racists, we will never have elected a black president. I personally know countless of successful professionals. They're black, Hispanic, Latino, Asians, you name it, and they're all here in this nation. This nation provided them the opportunity to succeed and excel in all areas of their lives. The media is having a great time with this. In one side, they only show the demonstrations and protests that turn out to be violent. They're not showing the ones where people stand their grounds and peacefully demonstrate and show everyone that they want change. On the other end, you find another side of the media that says that if you're a black, Hispanic, Latino, or whatever, or Asian, doesn't matter, you can't get ahead in life. Both narratives are wrong. So, if you are a young person listening to me right now, please hear me out. It is true that some people had it handed down to them a little bit easier than others, but this is still not an excuse for you to fail or give up in life. That is not an excuse for you to develop a victim mentality and blame everybody else for your mistakes or for your current situation, but yourself. If you live in this country, especially if you're born in this country, if you work hard and smart and persevere, you will find success. God will bless you. This country is still one of the best countries to live. But still, in the light of everything that has happened in the last few months in our country, how can we make a positive influence to bless others in this time of so great need in our nation? So here are 5 tips to help you make a positive influence in days like this. Tip number 1, do not go with the flow. In other words, do not succumb to peer pressure. There are a lot of people right now making a lot of statements and just saying something because the crowd, everybody else is saying something. Do not let yourself be dragged by the crowd. Historically speaking, wisdom is never found in the voice of the crowd. Don't believe me? Just ask Jesus Christ and Pilate himself. Tip number 2, remember that God is going to judge the world. In Revelation chapter 14 verse 7 says, "Fear God and give him glory, for the hour of his judgment has come. Worship him who made the heavens and the earth and everything in it." God is our creator and our judge, and he's going to judge the world. More than ever before, the 3 angels' messages bring a powerful, relevant message to these days. We're all made in the image of God, and yes, we all are going to be judged by the same God who made us. That does not mean that people should not be punished for their crimes, but that gives us the assurance that one day God will judge the earth. All the things that happened in the past now no one could see, nobody was ever caught, but the injustice, it still took place. One day God is going to set the record straight. Tip number 3, above all, do not, absolutely do not retaliate. There was a law in the Old Testament known as an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. It is quite popular today, but yet it's highly misunderstood. When people say this, they usually say because they think they have the right to avenge, to retaliate. But in reality, this principle is only there in the first place to avoid retaliation, to avoid revenge. For example, if somebody punched in the face, you cannot go there now and give him a completely beat down and leave him for dead on the streets. The only thing you could do was to punch him in the face. In other words, the punishment should meet the crime, and never go above and beyond it. But today, when people say an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, what they really mean is total retaliation. What they mean is revenge. But what about the wrongs in the past? What about the things were done in the past? We must avenge them right now. We must set the record straight right now. Guys, we can't. We can't change the past. The only thing we can do is shape the future. And the future is never bright when it's paved by revenge. Okay? Cantar. Say, hi guys. Hi guys. Yay! And by the way, in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus put this whole thing of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth down with saying, love your enemies and pray for your enemies. That does not mean we become best friends with your enemies, but it does mean you should not pay evil with evil, not even when it's equivalent or proportional. Tip number 4, do not generalize. The officers involved in the killing of George Floyd were wrong. They made a huge mistake. Many officers actually stood up and say, no, they would never stand for that at all. But also to blame now all police officers and say that all police now is wrong, they're bad, is lunacy. What authority do I have to stand against discrimination and racism, which is a huge generalization of a specific group of people, when I'm generalizing against other groups of people? I have no authority at all. And fifth, number 5, remember that real change takes place in the inside. Yes, there must be change. Our country needs to change. But before it gets into the judicial system, it needs to get into our homes. We have a generation of young people who are willing to protest and demonstrate and stand for justice and for George Floyd, but they're treating their very own parents as if they were enemies. We have a generation of men who are willing to create hashtags, justice for all, I stand for George Floyd, or Black Lives Matter, but they're still beating their wives at home. And they are from all different races, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, you name it. They're telling their wives to go and run to the kitchen and be quiet, and if they don't, they threaten to hurt them. Nobody's talking about that kind of abuse. Nobody's talking about that kind of justice right now. But did you know, since this whole quarantine thing began, the rates of domestic abuse skyrocketed. There are thousands of people right now going out on the streets demanding justice, but they can't even be just with the ones that are closest to them. That's why I said it last week, before we can stand for justice, we must know what justice stands for. Friends, it must begin inside. It has to begin from inside out. Micah chapter 6 verse 8 says, He has shown you, O men, what is good, and what does the law require of you, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. What a powerful verse for these days, right? What does the law require of you and me? Just to do justly, to love mercy, to be kind, to be respectful to everyone around you, including those that are closest to you. How do you expect to change the world if you're not changing even your home? Guys, in today's conversation, I'm praying for 3 things. I'm praying for strength to stand for justice. I'm praying for wisdom to know what justice stands for. And I'm praying for humility to know that no one, you and me, should not, must not stand alone. We must stay together in Christ. One body, one mind. God bless you.